Hands up. 1, 2, 3.
The Jets are back on their practice field after their 34-3 trouncing of the Oakland Raiders, now shifting focus to a winless Cincinnati Bengals team who are playing better as of late. They've lost their past 2 games by a total of 13 points. Welcome into practice today, presented by SiriusXM. Ethan Greenberg, Eric Allen, talking all things Jets-Bengals. But first, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there who's been watching the show throughout the year. The Jets on a 3-game win streak, as you mentioned, Green. So Jets fans, a lot to be thankful for, and maybe they'll have some desserts on the way. The green and white facing the Bengals Sunday in Cincinnati. Week it probably changed up a little bit here for the Jets and all National Football League teams, because typically what happens is no media availability on Thursday, and the coaches let the players get away after practice. So maybe a half a day of practice, a half a day here at the facility before they resume practice out here on Friday again.
So the Jets have won 3 games in a row. Their offense dramatically improved from Sam Darnold's first 5 starts compared to his last 3. And really what I've been most impressed with, at least so far this week, I know it's only been a couple days, is the team's drive to refocus and their understanding that even though the Bengals are winless, this is still the National Football League. This is not a game you can just gloss over.
Well, Adam Gase has been talking about his team all year, how they've been able to come out on this specific day, Wednesday, because that's when you really turn that calendar forward. The game plan is in place and focusing on the task at hand. So you have no laurels to rest on. That's what I believe Brandon Copeland said before they took on the Oakland Raiders. And I thought they showed their mettle against the Raiders, because after a 2-game win streak, the Raiders were coming to town and people were talking about this is going to be a step up in class, right? Well, the Jets won in convincing fashion, and I thought they played their most complimentary football game of the year. And you mentioned what you're hearing from the guys in the locker room. Henry Anderson said, hey, listen, we're 4-7. We dug ourselves an early hole. Sam Darnold echoed his head coach's sentiments by saying, hey, listen, week to week for us. And it's 16 one-game seasons, and here we go. Jets Cincinnati this weekend.
Sam Darnold's played fantastic as of late, really almost echoing what you saw at the end of last season. And Adam Gase was asked about Sam Darnold's play and what's changed for him in this 3-game win stretch. This is what he had to say earlier today.
I think just him throwing the ball away, the decision making, I've been really, really impressed with how quickly it's kind of hit him, how to kind of handle some of the situations instead of extending the play, when to throw it away, when he can go make a play, when he can pull it down and run most of the time. So, I feel like that part of it is really, it's hitting him the right way right now.
What impressed you about the way he handled all the criticism after the Monday night game against New England, Jacksonville? And he's 22 years old, and he was kind of under siege there for a while. Just what did you see from him?
He did a good job of resetting. On Wednesday, the best thing that happens is when you play the next game. All your focus has to go in on that. If it doesn't, then it's tough. If you're worried about something else, it's not going to work out well. So I think that he did a good job of wiring in on what was going on that week, focusing on that team, pouring into the film, pouring into the game plan, practicing, just all those things. It's just all the other stuff goes away because you have to put so much effort into getting ready for the next game.
Sam Darnold, there he is. He really is Mr. November. I know you wanted to say that, but
how do you know that?
Well, we did a little preparation for this show, but Sam Darnold really has played great in the month of November, which includes his game against the Miami Dolphins. And there you have it right there. AFC leading, 1,098 yards passing, completing 66% of his passes, 10 touchdowns, quarterback rating of 107.5, and for this week in particular, he was nominated to be the FedEx Air Player of the Week. You can vote until Thursday afternoon, NFL.com/FedEx, or go to their Twitter page and check it out. But simply put, 14's been great throughout this month.
He's making better decisions, isn't he? You think about the times you're seeing him live to fight another day. He's throwing the football away when it's not there. He's still making a couple risky plays. I think about that third down, Greens, when the Red Sea parted and he somehow found a window, an impossible throw to Robbie Anderson, which probably Adam Gase said, well, okay, we'll take the yards, but tuck it. But I just think he seems more calm in the pocket. And coincidentally, you got to talk about the offensive line, because when this all started, you talk about him being Mr. November, is that Jacksonville game, he was sacked 8 times. Then he had that heart-to-heart with Gase, and they've responded with a 3-in-1 month overall. It's so interesting when you think about where November started. The Jets faced a winless Miami Dolphins team, and they really, and I'm writing about this right now, Greens, they hit rock bottom. Went 1-7 against that Miami team, and now they start December off against a winless team in the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's see how far they've come. I really think this is a totally different team than that started the month.
Adam Gase said the same thing. He was asked today, you were in this situation once before the season, going on the road to face a winless team, and he said this team right now, being the Jets, is totally different than the Jets team that went down to South Florida and lost to the Dolphins. And in terms of Sam Darnold, I know we looked at his numbers. Well, those numbers just comparatively is top 10 in the NFL in completion percentage, yards per game, passing touchdowns, passer rating, and something else that I think has been really – you noticed the difference is spreading the ball around.
A little snot rocket from Sammy there.
Yeah, it's cold out here.
It's not that bad.
No, but it's a little nippy. It's football weather. What I do want to say, though, is that he's completed passes in 2 consecutive games to 9 different players. And we've talked about this ad nauseum for the past couple weeks, how it seems like the offense is finding its groove, and that's just one snippet of how the offense has been succeeding.
Yeah, you were talking about ball distribution, and you're right about it, because every time you see Sam back in the pocket, you know the ball can go to anybody. And the Jets got Robbie Anderson more involved last week, and he's been playing well. Jamison Crowder is the team leader in terms of receptions. Le'Veon Bell right at his heels, so you got Le'Veon involved in the pass game. I don't know about you, Greens. I didn't know what to expect completely from Demaryius Thomas, because obviously coming off the injury in Houston last year, it was in New England during the preseason, but I think he's been tremendous for Darnold and company. So it's all working in the pass game right now, because all these guys have different skill sets, and Sam Darnold is seeing the field very well. There's no doubt about that. He's making quick, decisive reads, and he's also been so calm back there in the pocket. The low snap from Jonathan Harrison, who's been playing very well for the Jets since taking over for Ryan Cleo. That just showed you where he's at right now. No panic at all. He picks up the ball, shuffles a couple steps left, and then he finds Thomas for about a 10-yard gain and on the first down.
So I think a couple things have looked different for Sam Darnold, at least in my opinion. The calmness in the pocket, I think, has allowed him to be a little more aggressive and a little more decisive, like you said. And to me, when you look at the different guys that have stepped up just over the course of November, it was Jamison Crowder for a couple weeks. Demaryius Thomas has been pretty consistent. Robbie Anderson scored touchdowns in back-to-back games. And, of course, how about the team's leading touchdown guy, Ryan Griffin, punched it in again, fresh off his contract extension, punches it in the end zone on a sprint right throwback to Griffin, who just walked in. Nobody was there.
Yeah, and I think the first read on that might have been Crowder. And Sam probably could have had that touchdown pass to Jamison, but Ryan Griffin was happy about that. Apparently, they obviously worked on that in practice the previous week, and Griffin said the defense played it well, but he asked Gase, he was hoping that he'd run that play, and, that throwback tight end screen, and he's in the end zone for the 5th time this season, leading the team. I bet you a lot of fantasy folks didn't think the Jets, after 11 games now, their leading touchdown getter would be Ryan Griffin, but he does everything well for this team. He's a good blocker. He knows the system. He's well liked in the locker room. the radar signings, I think, by Joe Douglas this year when you re-ink guys like Griffin, and then we think about Steve McClendon earlier in the year.
Thomas Hennessy, too.
Yeah. So these are guys that are going to be around who are – they're part of your core. They're kind of glue guys that aren't the stars that Jamal Adams are, but they're key players for this team moving forward. You mentioned Hennessy. You got to have a good long snapper, and he also covers pretty well.
Yeah, he does. I feel like he's one of the better coverage long snappers in the league. Granted,
There's no doubt about that.
I'm not looking at all 32, but I'm looking at one of the 32, and he's doing a good job here for the Jets. And you mentioned the offensive line before. The Jets have had 7 different offensive line combinations. They've had 2 players start at every position throughout the line over the course of the season. And now we got another combination because Chuma Edoga out week to week with a knee injury, which means Brandon Shell comes on the right side again. And really throughout all of this, Brian Winters goes down, Tom Compton gets plugged in there. Over the past 3 weeks when the Jets have won, they've only allowed 5 sacks, which is tied for 8th in the NFL, compared to way back in the beginning of the season. It was not the case for the green and white.
They're playing their best football. There's no doubt about that, And Brandon Shell will go back to right tackle, but I think the key guy up front for this team has been Calvin Beecham, and he's got a Warriors mentality because he's dealing with a lot of ankle issues right now, but he continues to get up and he's protecting Sam Darnold's backside. That is a key position. The communication has been better. We're looking at Jets offensive line coach Frank Pollock right now, and he's got a lot of intel on the Cincinnati Bengals that he'll be able to share with the opposite side of the ball, Greg Williams and company.
You know what I just noticed on our screen here? Brent Quale's in a helmet for the first time this season, so he's probably in that practice eligibility period. If he is designated to return, I think time will tell.
Because I was talking to Gase about it. You mentioned Quale. Connor McDermott was the guy next man up last week with all the tackles going out.
Yeah, that was a weird Calvin Beecham got hurt, and then he's ready to come in, and on the same play that Beecham's ready to come in, Chuma goes down. So Brandon Shell, who was on the left side, just moved over to the right side. It's a whirlwind, and really like it's just what's that game with musical chairs? It's like musical offensive linemen for the Jets.
You forgot about musical chairs?
I forgot the name. I'm sorry. But you're right. You're absolutely right. Calvin Beecham's been the glue, and he's dealing with a lot of injuries this season. He sprained both ankles at different points throughout the year. Last game, tapes it back up, and we had him on the podcast this week, and Calvin Beecham does a ton of work in the community. Yesterday, he went into Harlem, did something with the food bank, and this is what Calvin Beecham had to say about yesterday's event.
So we'll be going to Harlem, actually, Manhattan, and going to the local food shelter there. I've been serving there and volunteering there since I've been here in New York, and we're doing a turkey distribution to the community there. I'm going to be serving kind of like a Thanksgiving meal as well. So I'm excited that, get to go there and participate with other teammates. So usually when I go there, it's just me volunteering, but it's a couple of my teammates that are coming, and I'm excited to go and serve the community again.
Every week, you can find the official Jets podcast powered by Amazon Web Services on all platforms, video, NewYorkJets.com, and YouTube. You just want the audio, go to basically wherever you can find a podcast, Apple Podcast, SoundCloud, Google Play. Rate us, review us. I think it's been a good pod this year, EA.
I've really enjoyed it, and I think we got good things in store. I don't know if we've released it publicly, but we're going to have a different look next year in 2020, but I think the podcast is going to expand even more, and we got a good one with Henry Goose Anderson coming up as well.
Right now, you're looking at Le'Veon Bell, who post-game, after the Jets beat the Raiders, said he's feeling good, feeling a little crazy, and I think that when you look at Le'Veon and you look at his stats, they don't pop out at you, but you can get a feeling, I get a sense at least, that he's really coming on as of late, and it feels like he's finding his groove and he's only a couple plays away from being the Le'Veon Bell of 2017.
The man nicknamed Juice gave the Jets some juice on that first offensive play against the Oakland Raiders. There wasn't much of a window there, and Sam Darnold put it in the only place you could, and Wow, Le'Veon Bell showed his receiving skills early with a one-hander that he was able to corral. Really helps his team in the passing game. We know that. And he'll have this opportunity this weekend. This whole offensive line that we've been talking about trying to get to the second level, the volume's been there the last couple of weeks, Greens. 33 carries, I believe, against Washington, 30 carries against the Raiders. So more balance in terms of play calling. And the Jets, of course, have had the lead as well. Big-time leads, 30-point leads in consecutive games for the first time in franchise history. That's a hell of a place to be in. But when you look at the Cincinnati defense, they're giving up more yards on the ground than anybody in the NFL, aren't they?
166.4 yards per game.
Yep.
And if you're Le'Veon Bell, obviously he's familiar with the Bengals. Of course, Le'Veon played with the Steelers until this season, so he's familiar with Cincinnati and Paul Brown Stadium.
Sure.
And I'm sure he's licking his chops going up against those guys. But they got a talented front, at least personnel-wise. You spoke to Adam Gase earlier this week about Geno Atkins.
Yeah, he's a guy who can make it a long afternoon for you, and he's got 4.5 sacks, and he can get to the quarterback, but he can make things awfully tough for you in the run game. Carlos Dunlap is another guy who's been with Cincinnati for a long time. They got some linebackers who can run, and when you look at the Cincinnati team, defensively, I think the last couple games has been better for them. They've been giving their team an opportunity to win. Anytime you're holding a Pittsburgh team to 16 points, the previous week I believe they held the Raiders to 17 points. So they've been in ball games and they've been hanging around. Now what Cincinnati's hoping for is they get a shot in the arm on the other side of the ball with Andy Dalton. But Geno Atkins remains one of the better defensive interior players in football.
Something that I find interesting, the Jets have also used 4 running backs in consecutive weeks, being Le'Veon, Ty Montgomery, Bilal Powell, and Josh Adams. But when you look at this Bengals team, talked about they're playing better as of late. Well, they have a running back of their own, Joe Mixon, who's playing better as of late. He's the AFC's leading rusher last season.
Yeah.
And really not great stats this season, but the past 3 games, he's averaged 93 yards per game. And this Jets defensive front, you're looking at him right now from left to right. Steve McClendon, Quinnen Williams, Nathan Shepard, Falorenzo Fatukasi.
Yep.
They're coming off another great performance against the Raiders and Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, we heard all week about the effectiveness of Josh Jacobs. And what do you have, like 10 carries, 32 yards or something along those lines? Not much there in the run game for the Raiders. Again, the Jets leading the National Football League in every meaningful rush statistic. With that being said, you're right. The Bengals have been running the football better of late, and Dalton could help them in that way, not because he's going to run the ball, but obviously you're going to have to respect the pass more. I think Ryan Finley was he was struggling. You look at those numbers, he was scuffling. But you bring Dalton back into the mix, and you mentioned Mixon last year, what he did on the ground. Well, the last 4 games, and you mentioned those stats over the last 3 games, over the last 4 games he's averaging 5 yards a pop. But we hear about that every week. Adrian Peterson, he's got a revival going on. Well, the Jets shut him down. And then Josh Jacobs, wow, this guy is one of the AFC's top running backs, and he's closing in on 1,000 yards. Well, the Jets took him out of the game. So Joe Mixon.
You got to go back before Adrian Peterson, too, because Saquon Barkley, NFL's Rookie of the Year, a single yard against this Jets defense.
Yeah, so Cincinnati will try to have some balance, and it sounds good in theory. Most teams haven't been able to get that going.
I think the last game that really stood out to me where the Jets allowed a long rush was the Jaguars, and Leonard Fournette broke one for 60-plus yards, but then he only had 10 yards after that point, and that was in the first quarter.
Over 17 carries.
Correct.
17 carries, 10 yards, Leonard Fournette after that 66-yarder. Yeah. Greg Williams has a lot of great things going on right now. I love the way his defensive backs play the run.
I was going to bring that up.
You just mentioned the defensive line, no doubt about it. Here you go. Swiss Army knife, 33. You can do anything with them. Move them all over the line. You never know when he's coming or when he's not. The other thing, the Jets are getting good run support from their cornerbacks. Brian Poole has been tremendous. And good for him getting that pick six, first touchdown. He got his ball back, so all is good.
All is good here at One Jets Drive.
All is good in the neighborhood. And also, how about the play of the cornerbacks? I mean, Arthur Millette comes in, starting the last 3 games. He has 7 tackles, I believe, against the Raiders. And bless Austin, he's quickly become a fan favorite.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And like you said, the Jets corners, they play an imperative role in run support too. And this week, they have a tough test because, one, they don't know if A.J. Green's playing. A.J. Green has not played so far this season, 7-time Pro Bowler for the Cincinnati Bengals. And opposite Green, who's become the #1 receiver for this season, Tyler Boyd, who has 700 yards, and he's coming off an 100-yard performance.
Yeah, Boyd's a vertical threat. There's no doubt about it. And A.J. Green, and we're looking at Bless Austin. We're also
and
watching.
Darryl Roberts back at practice for the first time in a couple weeks.
The other thing is, as we peek at those matchups, is how are the Jets going to use Darryl Roberts this week? Because does he go back to being a starter, or will he be this team's 4th cornerback this week? But it's a good problem to have because you want to have guys healthy. But Austin has been really good. I mean, he put that big pop on Hunter Renfrow last week, and there's Marcus Maye, number 20, popping in on the screen. He's been great. Arthur Millette said, you got to give him a lot of credit because we are disguising so well. We're not looking at that clock. We're not looking to move until 2 seconds. 2 seconds before the play actually is snapped. Then they move. So they're disguising coverages very well. And we mentioned Bless Austin and Marcus Maye. How about Marcus Maye's 4th down stop? And Bless comes in and helps him out. And there you go.
The Jets have done a great job in this 3-game stretch in a lot of different areas, one of them being turnovers. The Jets in that stretch, 3 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, and the Bengals have given the ball away 22 times this season. That's 29th in the league. And when you look at the numbers here, throughout a 16-game season, right now the Jets, of course, are in Week 13 as the rest of the NFL, but the Jets are 2nd in the league in non-offensive points, so really defense and special teams.
Yeah, and I think it all starts with Brant Boyer has always done a good job here as special teams coordinator, but in terms of Greg Williams, you were out there every training camp practice. What do these guys do after every play? If the ball was on the ground, even if it's an incomplete pass, they all run to the football. And the thing is that when you watch other teams run the football, it's not just 2 or 3 guys getting to the ball carrier. They swarm to the ball. This is something that is taught at practice each and every day. It is their mentality that they are attacking. They're coming not just to stop you. They're coming to take it away. And, oh, by the way, they want to take it to the house. And Jamal Adams is leading the way. He's got 2 touchdowns this year himself.
So the Jets are going to have a good opportunity, at least you would imagine on paper, to get after Andy Dalton because a couple things. One, Andy Dalton in his 8 starts was sacked 29 times. Between Dalton and Finley, the Bengals offensive line has allowed 40 sacks and an average of just over 3.5 sacks per game. And this Jets defensive front is tied for 2nd in the NFL in their 3-game winning streak with 10 sacks. And Jamal Adams, 2 sacks away now from breaking Adrian Wilson's record.
Yeah, 1.5 will tie the record. Adrian Wilson, of course, a former Cardinal safety. I believe he set that mark in 2005. But Jamal has been open about it. He said, I'm going to set the record. And who are we to say he's not? Now he's picked up at least a half a sack in 4 consecutive games. We talk about the Jets streaking. Nobody is playing better at the safety position in the National Football League than Jamal Adams. And credit goes to Greg Williams, credit goes to his teammates, but also let's give a lot of credit to Jamal as far as his development and the way he brings it every day on the practice field, and then it's been translated to the game. He is an impressive athlete, a star player.
Okay, so because Thanksgiving is tomorrow, as we wrap up things here on Practice Today presented by SiriusXM, we went to the locker room and we asked all the different players, or a handful of different players, if they were to invite one of their teammates to their Thanksgiving dinner, to their family's Thanksgiving dinner, who that would be. So here you go. Here's a little Thanksgiving treat, and thanks for watching practice today presented by SiriusXM.
Happy Thanksgiving,
Allen,
everybody.
I'm Ethan Greenberg, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
If he didn't have nowhere to go for Thanksgiving to the folks, would be, it's a little multitude of guys. I would take Goose, but he's too much of a prima donna. He'll be like, oh, why does it taste that way? Goose is a prima donna. It might be Frankie, Cope, and maybe Bash. One of them three. Can't pick. It's a good even tie.
Let's see. John Harrison, no, would never bring him to my house for Thanksgiving. He would probably eat up everything.
Let's go Jonathan Harrison. Big Jonathan Harrison. You know, he could take down a Thanksgiving meal and then some. And plus he'd be awesome to have around the family.
Ryan Griffin. I've got to know Ryan pretty well over the past few months. He's a true pro. He's 30, so you know he's not going to mess up around family.
There's a lot of guys in this locker room I bring by to Thanksgiving. So fortunately we got a good group.